Hey everybody. So if you live in the UK, or if you live in America, you might have heard about this. In the past, maybe year, there's been quite a lot of talk about a revolution coming to the UK, particularly highlighted in the past couple of months. The interview between Jeremy Paxman and Russell Brand, it's well worth a watch, because it just does highlight a lot of the issues. And as he says himself, revolution is on the way. There's been a great upwelling of anger and distrust towards the government for the way that it's been acting in the past, forever pretty much, but very much in recent years. The way the government's run is not for the everyday person like you and me, going to work, paying our taxes, all of that sort of stuff. It's been aimed at about 1% of the population that it actually works for, and that is the 1% that are actually very well off. I go to work and I work full-time hours, and I get paid minimum wage. That minimum wage is not enough to live on. That is, I survive month by month, and that's what a lot of us do. The minimum wage has very quickly become the maximum wage. It's difficult to earn more than minimum wage. Every job you look at, it just says minimum wage. What's the point of ever changing a job? If you go from one job to another job, you don't actually change how much money you earn. And that really is the tip of the iceberg, but that's the bit that's going to personally affect you more. Then you've got to look at the banks and the way that they work, and the way that the government allow them to work, the payouts that they can pay out each year to their members, just a few members are making money, huge, vast sums of money, off of people who don't have any. And then when these banks start having problems because they've given too much money away to all their shareholders and people high up in the company with their bonuses, then the bank has a problem and the government had to bail it out. But it's not the government bailing it out, it's you, it's your money. That money that could go into the education, health system and all the things for you, it's not. It just ends up lining the pockets of the fat cats. And that's a very cliche thing to say, fat cats, but you know what I mean. We all believe we live in a democracy because you have the vote. As Russell Brand said, he's never voted, and I'm with him on that one. I have never voted. And I get a lot of stick from people who say, oh, how can you possibly have an opinion on things if you won't vote? And they can't see past the fact that if you choose option A or option B, you're still picking from the same pot. It makes no great difference, and that's why I've always thought it was farcical. I never bothered voting. Because what you get is the same thing at the end of the day. It's the same system run the same way, maybe by slightly different people, but the outcome is the same. The way that the system is, the way that we have fractional banking, the whole thing is what's causing the problems we're having today. And during this time, a few people have got very rich, but an awful lot of people have got very poor. So you'll quite often see talk, as I say, of revolution, of mass change, because it isn't a government thing. We don't need to have Conservative or Labour. We don't need to have any of them. We need to change it entirely. There needs to be much more transparency. There needs to be much more control by the common person. I mean, as I say, people think it's a democracy because you have the vote, but they choose what you get to vote on. And you're going to be saying, well, what can people possibly do about it to change this? And I agree with you. What can you do? There isn't an awful lot. I mean, there are a few things. A good example is the TV licence. In England, we pay a BBC TV licence to receive television to our homes. This licence money funds the BBC, a company which has claimed poverty for a very long time. Your TV licence is actually a contract between the government and the BBC that means that the BBC have to provide fair and unbiased programming to the masses. Now, we all know this is not happening. The BBC are extremely biased. Look at the way they report terrorism. Look at the way they report a lot of the stuff that they report. And more importantly, the things they don't report. A few years ago, when global warming was coming to the forefront of our attention, or should I say being brought to the forefront of our attention, we're being told how our cars are causing the problems, how industry is causing it. And then there's taxation with that. So that car, for instance, will cost an awful lot more to run than that one in tax. But it's been proven in more recent years that the global warming issue may not be as we thought it was. But has the BBC reported on that in any way, shape or form? No, they haven't. They just keep with the cars are bad, the global warming's happening because of X, Y and Z, and you've got to pay your taxes to help. Oh, but it gets so much worse, people, because the BBC are taking millions of pounds a year from Europe, I think it was from the European Union or something like that, to report on global warming in the way that they do, to keep the scaremongering going. in doing that is a complete breach of the contract of the TV licence. They cannot take money to give biased programming when we're paying them to not do that. Also, the BBC paying out massive bonuses and sort of end of contract type things to people. There's an example of a guy working for the BBC for 54 days and getting paid £430,000. Did you also know there is a company called BBC Worldwide which runs alongside the BBC? But this is a separate company, and they had a report of a profit of £160 million, a turnover of 1.1 billion. How are they making this money? By selling the TV programmes which we've paid for, like Top Gear. You know, Top Gear appears in all other countries and things like that. Yeah, well, what they do is they sell the programming and pocket the money. You know, if that came back into the BBC itself, maybe the TV licences wouldn't be as much as they are. By the way, the TV licence, if you don't know, is about £140? The government know this is going on, but the government don't do anything to stop it. The government is there for us. It's supposed to protect us. It's supposed to represent us as an everyday person. But it doesn't. But for years, they've been pulling the wool over people's eyes, and people have been eating it up. You know, this is where things like Anonymous have grown, because you've got a collection of people now that are getting very angry and not accepting their lies anymore. With the advent of the internet age and communications instantly worldwide, it's not working for them anymore. And it's all starting to come unravelled. And that's why, as Russell Brand was saying, there will be revolution. How it's going to work, I don't really know. But what it does require is that a lot of everyday people get involved and do the things that everyone is going to be doing. And getting that to happen is going to be very difficult, because it's going to require things like refusing to pay your TV licence. Say the government tried to take you to court to pay a fine, you can argue that they're in breach of contract. If it proves that they're in breach of contract because of what they've done, that shows a legal precedence, and they will have to pay out so much money. It's unbelievable. I mean, of course, don't forget the other thing the BBC is doing, which is covering up child molesters, and have done habitually for years. This truly is a massive subject for me to try and fit into a small video. I could go off for probably 25-30 minutes into each little bit, and I haven't got time to do that. So I'm now going to have to move on to the what can we do's. Now, as I say, not paying your TV licence, that's one of them. A lot of people getting together masked on the street, you know, with Anonymous with a V mask. But it's not a V mask, let's get this clear. It's not a V mask. It was popularised by the film Viva Vendetta, but it was in fact a Guy Fawkes mask. What was Guy Fawkes doing? He was trying to blow up government because he didn't agree with what was going on at the time. So it just goes to show, nothing changes. I mean, look at the politicians. None of them have the day-to-day money worries that we have. How could they possibly understand what they're doing if they don't know the problem themselves? So as I say, the V-mask, people going out and protesting on the streets. If thousands upon thousands of people go onto the street masked and peacefully protest using their rights to protest, their rights to free speech, if the police try and get in the way of that and stop people, that is a breach of human rights, as I understand it. And there is precedence for this. The London riots. And yes, okay, they did happen for a different reason. And we do not need people to smash our country up. That's not going to help ourselves. Stealing off of each other. It's the whole point of the whole thing, is to help a fellow man out, not to have personal gain out of it. Now, disruption, that can be as simple as someone dumping 3 tons of manure across a road. Because that disruption, if it caused enough delay to people, would end up costing businesses a lot of money. You know what they say about the snow? When the country closes down for one day, it costs just millions, hundreds of millions. And this is the thing, you can tell people all about what's been going on for years, and they'll keep going along in their box to work, backwards and forwards, paying the taxes, and just lapping it up. But you make them 20 minutes late for work a few days in a row, or you cause them some disruption to their day of getting to work for more than, as I say, 5, 10, 15 minutes, the uproar will be huge because people can't accept that. You know what it's like? You get to a set of traffic lights, someone at the front stalls. Within 3/4 of a second, everyone's fucking beep, 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 because it's affecting them. And they, I can't have that affecting me, that's me. And that's selfish thinking, and that has got to change. I'll be honest, I don't know how this is going to work. But there's too much happened up to now. There's too much build-up for it to just fizzle away into nothing. It's going to come to a head, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is in the next 12 months. but it'll probably take something to happen to kick it off, a seed, or some secret documents coming out about something that happened that was corrupt within the government. Then it'll start. They say it's already started, but, you know, for it to properly get into its next gear, and we see it in the news, that's probably what's going to happen. And of course, when I say see it in the news, I mean to the point that there's so many people on the streets, London's not moving, they can't hide from this and ignore it like they like to do with a lot of other stuff. But what we need is the everyday man in government making decisions or helping make decisions. We need complete transparency so we can see the decisions, we can see the problems ourselves and see if the decision they made we agree with. Surely in a democracy that's how it works. We should have a vote on these things, but no, we don't. We only have a vote on the person who's in charge. And as we all know, as I've said, there's no point in doing that because it's coming from the same system. Of course, there's other potential problems. How do you get that many people to, you know, go from thinking that this is some crackpot conspiracy theory thing to realising that it's real life? It's every day and we need to do something about it. And the only way that can happen is if we all stand up as everyday people. Because as one, two people, yeah, okay, you don't have much power. But when there's tens of thousands of people on the street saying, no, we've had enough, they have to listen. The other problem I can see with this is the age range. It seems that these days, the only people that are switched on enough and, you know, not so blinkered as to believe everything the government says, and they will question everything, it's generally younger people. Because, for instance, my mum, she's 65, she cannot believe, she cannot accept that the government would not be doing something in her own best interests, even though there is vast amounts of evidence being poured onto her. And I tell her about these things, she cannot see it any other way than, no, the government's always been here to look after us. So I hope if you were confused by this whole revolution thing and you're like, what the hell is it all about, how would that even happen and what would it be like afterwards, as I say, the reason why it's happening and what it is, I've explained. What we can do about it, I've given a couple of ideas, but I honestly don't know. There is cleverer people out there than me who will work out the best way of these things to happen. And that's the thing, it won't be just one person, it will be a group of people discussing it. And what would it be like afterwards? I can't tell you, I don't know. I just don't know. But this current system is not working, and a lot of people can see that it is all going to come to a head eventually. So, we live in interesting times. There we go. Considering I got a chest infection, probably shouldn't have done that.